Hey everybody, this is my video for the Culture and Aseptic Technique lab. So when you're starting lab, you should make sure that you have your hair tied back. So I've tied mine, no baggy clothes or anything like that, and you're gonna leave all of your bags, food, water, all that stuff by the door when you enter lab. You also should be wearing protective equipment, so your safety goggles, gloves, and your lab apron. Once you get to your workstation, hopefully the person in front of you has sterilized it after they were done with their lab, but you also should sterilize it as well. So I have my spray bottle as well as my paper towel. And so let me set up my lab area for you. And this is my micro incinerator, so let's pretend it's starting that 10 minutes to heat up. But spray down and then wipe down your work area. So while that's heating up, I'll make sure to grab my equipment that I need for the experiment today. So we have our 2 plates that I'm grabbing from the incubator, and hopefully they're labeled with my name, date, and then bacteria that we're transferring. I also have my test tubes in this mug here. I have a little piece of foam in between them so I can tell them apart as we do our experiment. So this is nice and hot. We need to sterilize our inoculating loop. You need to sterilize not just that loop, but also that first part of the wand, because that will be getting into or hovering over the plates and into the test tubes as well. So you want to make sure it's all nice and sterile. To sterilize, you want to put it in the micro incinerator for 10 seconds. Gets nice and hot. And then hold it out for a minute. If you do not give it a minute to cool down, you will kill your sample. So we want to transfer from plate 1 to plate 2. Keep your wand nice and sterile. Lift with one hand, crack it open, it's like a clamshell, and then gently, without too much pressure, scrape atop the sample, close it, and put it down. We want to transfer to plate 2. So again, pick it up, one hand, open it like a clamshell, and then scrape along the top very gently. I'm holding it like I would hold a pencil. I obviously don't hold the pencil just like this, but very gently and then parallel to the plate so that you don't put too much pressure. So I scraped along the top of that. I'm going to place that out of my way, and then we need to re-sterilize. So again, 10 seconds and then hold it out. The next transfer we're going to be doing is the broth to broth. So like I mentioned, my test tubes are in here, and I did just sterilize my inoculating loop, but let's just do it again. So 10 seconds, hold it out for a minute, and I'm going to grab my first test tube. Again, hopefully these are nice and labeled, but give it a little bit of a swirl to make sure not everything's just at the bottom or anything like that. So you want to hold the test tube with one hand and then use the pinky finger of your other to get the cap off. It's important to sterilize this top of the test tube as well. 2 to 3 seconds in front of the micro incinerator should do the trick. And then you want to take your sterilized inoculating loop and go into the sample, collect. Now you have your sample on your inoculating loop, and before you put the cap back on, you should again re-sterilize in front of the micro incinerator. Place the lid back on, put it back in your test tube tray, and grab the second. You can see there's water in this one as well. So same deal, we're gonna hold this with one hand and open with the other. Sterilize, sterilize for 2 to 3 seconds. And then you're gonna take your sample, out of frame there, take your sample, add it to test tube 2, release, sterilize, sterilize, 2 to 3 seconds, and then place your cap back on. You can put it back in your test tube tray. We'll re-sterilize our inoculating loop, 10 seconds, 1 minute. The last transfer we're going to be doing is plate to broth. So I'll bring back, this is plate number 1 that has our original sample, and then I've got my test tube in here. So let's just sterilize one more time, start from the beginning. 10 seconds in the micro incinerator. Hold it out for 1 minute so as not to kill your sample. Take the plate and lift like a clamshell, Gently scrape along the top to collect. Close. Set that aside. And now to the broth, hold with one hand, open, sterilize the top of the tube 2 to 3 seconds in front of the micro incinerator opening, and then place your sample. Before putting the cap back on, sterilize the top, lid, test tube back in test tube tray, sterilize 10 seconds, and you're good to go. So when you're done with your transfers and everything like that, you should make sure to first put the plates and the test tubes back in their proper places. So whether that's your class rack or the incubator, if that's what you've been instructed to do, the plates should probably go in the incubator. And then making sure to sterilize all of your equipment. So putting all of the, I guess there's just one, inoculating wand into the proper container so it can be properly cleaned. And then put you back down. You should make sure to, again, use your disinfectant spray and your paper towel to wipe down your lab station. This makes it nice and clean for the next person. They should also still be sterilizing. However, it's nice for us to do it as well, just to make sure there's no remaining bacteria, because sometimes in lab we are working with bacteria that could be a little bit harmful. So that's my video on how to transfer bacteria. Thank you so much.